Hello everyone. Hope you are well. I've been busy watching the Australian Open. A lot of upsets, especially on the women's side. Very interesting Australian Open draw now. And I wanted to continue on my legend series. And today I wanted to give one of Australia's greatest legends, one of the best batsmen of his generation, known as a complete batsman, and one of the most mentally tough players that cricket has ever seen, Greg Chappell of Australia, who was a captain as well, not short of controversies as well, but a very tough person and an elegant batsman as well. He was one of the three Chappell brothers who played for Australia. Obviously, Ian Chappell, his older brother, and Trevor Chappell, his younger brother. He was the middle brother. He was born August 7th, 1948 in South Australia. He played for, other than obviously Australia, he played for South Australia. He played for Somerset as well in England, and he also played for Queensland. He's someone who was known as someone who actually made elegant stroke making together with fierce concentration as well. Like he really concentrated hard when he batted. He was tough to get out, but at the same time, he was a very elegant stroke maker. And the on drive was his specialty. I've heard many ex players talk about it, and even read lots about Greg Chappell's on drive. I mean, he was the master of the on drive, and he was born August 7, 1948. He played 87 test matches for Australia. He scored 7,110 runs, and his average was 53.86. And he scored 24 hundreds. His highest score was 247 not out against New Zealand. And that 53.86 is a very high average for someone who has scored more than 7,000 runs. If you take the top averages of the batsmen in the world who has played that many matches, he is definitely one of the top. And he also played around 70, 72, 74 one-day matches, and he scored more than 2,300 runs at an average of more than 40. And he also scored 300s in one-day cricket. And he took 122 catches in Test cricket as well. I mean, when he retired from cricket, he was the record holder of the highest number of catches in Test cricket. He also took 72 wickets in one-day cricket as well. And in first-class cricket, he has scored more than 24,500 runs, and he has scored 7,400s as well. And he did play at an era where the cricket was really tough. The West Indian team, the Indian team, English team, it was a very strong test arena at that time. And he made his first-class debut at the young age of 18. Ian Chappell and him obviously were playing in school at school level, and they were prodigies even at that time. And his debut, he scored 108 against England at Perth. And that was actually the first test match that was held at the WACA, Western Australian Cricket Association, the famous WACA, where the ball regarded as the most fastest and bounciest test wicket. And in 1973, he was the Wisden Cricketer of the Year. He had an amazing 72 season. In 72, the England tour of Australian tour, the Ashes series, he scored. In his second match, he scored a masterful 131 when Australia were like 7 for 2. And he put on a big partnership, big in the sense at that match situation. He put on a 75-run partnership with his brother Ian Chappell. And he got Australia out of trouble. And Greg Chappell and even Richie Benaud, the famous leg spinner, famous Australian captain, both of them, they regard that as Ian Chappell's best innings ever. And in the fifth test match at the Oval, they put on a record. Ian Chappell and Greg Chappell both scored centuries in the same innings. And that was the first time ever that two brothers scored centuries in the same innings. And in 1975-76, he was a captain, and he scored 2 centuries in the same test at Brisbane against West Indies, and Australia really beat West Indies big time. They beat West Indies 5-1, and he scored a classic 182 at the Sydney Test as well. I mean, in those times, obviously, people will know it was an easy thing to beat it beat West Indies, and they had a big 5-1 victory on top of big performances from Greg Chappell. And in 1973-74 against New Zealand, there was another record. That was the first tour of New Zealand for Australia, and Ian Chappell and Greg Chappell, they scored centuries in both innings of the test match, and it was the first time that ever happened as well. And in the test, Greg Chappell had a record that stood for many years as well. He scored 247 not out in one innings, and he scored 133 runs in the second innings as well. So he basically scored 380 runs together in this test match, and that record stood till 1990 when Graham Gooch of England broke that record. I mean, that's a match when Graham Gooch scored 333 in the first innings and I think 103 or 110. I think it was against India. Graham Gooch getting a triple 100 and 100 in the second innings. So that was when the record was broken. And Greg Chappell, he was no short of controversy. I mean, he had that controversy in that 1981 series against New Zealand when the final was 1-1. Australia, New Zealand needing runs of the last over, and Trevor Chappell, his brother, was bowling, and they needed 6 runs of the last ball to tie. And Greg Chappell was the captain, and he asked Trevor Chappell, his brother, to bowl an underarm. And Trevor Chappell bowled an underarm, and Australia won the match. And there was so much controversy after that, and the rule came as well. It's after that that the underarm rule came in cricket, and Trevor Chappell, his brother, was banned from cricket for life. So that was a very controversial incident, but they both of them apologized a lot after that, and they were embarrassed about that situation. One of the wrong choices that Greg Chappell made in his life. And there was another big controversy when Greg Chappell took the coaching job of India when Sourav Ganguly was the captain, and there was a lot of issues between Sourav Ganguly and Greg Chappell. Greg Chappell asking Sourav Ganguly to step down as a captain, and his form was poor, and Ganguly was dropped from the team as well. So, but there was a lot of controversies. It was a big saga, the India Greg Chappell Ganguly incident. But I don't want to give my much opinions about it because both players had their own reasons for behaving the way they did. And obviously Greg Chappell being a perfectionist, a big professional. I mean, he saw things from his side as a coach. So I wouldn't want to give my partial opinions on that. But definitely those were the two big controversies of Greg Chappell's life, the 1981 incident, the underarm incident, and then the Sourav Ganguly incident when he was a coach. But in all, I mean, he was an amazing batsman. I mean, the Chappell brothers were so famous. I mean, probably the most famous surname in Australia in a way, because Ian Chappell, Greg Chappell, and Trevor Chappell, all three of them did play for Australia and were big players, especially Ian Chappell and Greg Chappell. And like I said, Greg Chappell was considered like a complete batsman in the 70s and 80s as well. A lot of people admire Greg Chappell for the way he batted. I mentioned in the beginning about his stroke making, and when he started off, he was extremely strong on the leg side, and there were even criticisms that he wasn't that good on the offside, but he changed his technique a lot, and he then became a complete batsman, playing on the offside as well. And he was really good against fast bowling and against spin bowling as well. Has good records against all the countries. But like I said, the on drive was his biggest shot. He was known for his on drive. He was the on drive specialist, and he was a great captain for Australia. He was a very tough captain, very tough person. Like I said, in the 70s, 80s, cricket was more serious than today. I can say today there's a lot more money involved, but it was a very seriously played in the 70s and 80s with Australia, West Indies having great teams, and England also not bad, and India as well. So test series were played very tough, and Greg Chappell really did lead Australia from the front. That 5-1 victory over West Indies was a highlight. Beating West Indies in those times wasn't an easy thing. And just saying, he was the Wisden Cricketer of the Year in 1973. He has a few records, had the most number of catches when he retired. And definitely one of the greatest batsmen of his generation. I've heard Jeff Thomson say he was asked to compare Barry Richards with Greg Chappell, and he said there isn't much to choose between both of them. But obviously, Jeff Thomson being an Australian, he said he has seen more of Greg Chappell, so he would say Greg Chappell was a better batsman because he has seen him more, but he said Barry Richards wouldn't be much behind. So, I mean, if he had to be compared with Barry Richards, I mean, obviously he was one of the top batsmen. He had an average of 53.86 after scoring more than 7,000 runs. I mean, that is one of the high test averages in the history of cricket. So anyway, that is my video on Greg Chappell, one of the greatest Australian cricketers that has played this game, and one of the legends of cricket. Remembered for his on drive and his captaincy and the mental toughness that he had. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Take care. God bless you.